Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 18 Minutes with 180 Markets. Today, friends, is a special day. And why is today a special day? Because on this day, gold, the yellow metal, has finally cracked $2,000 an ounce. That's right, friends. It's ripped up about 40 bucks this morning, and last I checked was trading around $2,035 an ounce. Truly a historic day, probably even going higher. And with us today, and what's probably very relevant, is Andrew Richards of Big River Gold. And Andrew is here to talk all about his Brazilian gold project. He's going from the exploration to quickly production stage very quickly here. With that introduction, Andrew, welcome to 18 Minutes with 180 Markets.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for the invitation. And you're right, Incredible. It is a great day.
Absolutely. I'm just curious, and we can all opine per se, but what do you think about gold just being so strong right now?
Well, I think I wouldn't say it's overdue. I guess I've been a gold bull for a long time. I've been working in gold off and on for a long time, and I've always liked it. But in the past, there's been a disconnect between the macroeconomic policies and where we're facing now. And I think really, get your surfboard out because we're about to ride a wave for at least a few years, at least in a period where we've got low interest rates, expected increased inflation, and a general level of insecurity about what trade war is going to happen, political issues, economies around the world. And I think really the only safe haven left at the moment is gold. So I think we're starting to see the effects of that. So markets have had their time playing with cannabis and Bitcoin and other exotics, and I think it's back to basics. And I think where would you put your money if you've got no other low interest rates around the world? That's kind of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Andrew, everybody invests into projects, but people invest into people as well. Just give us a little bit of background on yourself for our shareholders, please.
Sure. Well, I've bbeen around a long time, a lot longer than I'd like to care to admit. I started out as a geologist, an exploration geo, but a lot of my time has really been in mining in one form or another, mostly mining of gold. Chief geologist at Telfer and New Celebration for several years. And then I did about 7 years in project finance, which really opened my eyes to the industry and all other aspects of it, and it gave me a lot of exposure to other things apart from just gold and different sections and cycles of the industry. And then after that, thinking I could easily do as well as anybody else I've been dealing with while I was at the bank, I went out and proved myself wrong and went out by myself, did a bit of consulting, did a corporate work, and then started getting more and more into putting companies together, turning companies around, looking at acquisition, and then also developing projects and advancing companies. So the last 15 years, 20 years or so, I've been in corporate management, largely overseas, out of Australia. I did a fair bit in Australia, but a lot of it out Southeast Asia, a lot in China, Africa, and South America as well. And so currently happy to be in Brazil, notwithstanding its current situation during the pandemic. It's a great place to be. And is bringing all those experiences I've had to the fore now in what we do.
Absolutely. And I suppose, that's a great segue into gold and Brazil, northern Brazil. Can you just talk to the audience a little bit about what makes northern Brazil such an exciting place to prospect for gold?
Well, where we are for a start is not in the jungle. It's out of the jungle. It's fantastic infrastructure. We're right in the main highway, 2.5 hours from the nearest capital in the Atlantic. There's no community issues. There's no illegal mining issues. So, and Brazil itself is a very sophisticated mining culture there, and you can get pretty much anything you need. But where we are at the moment, there is a background of mining history in the area, but not for gold. I think we're pretty much the first. Well, I wouldn't say we're the first movers in gold here, because there has been some spotty gold projects in and around the shear zone in which we are working. But gold here has been known for a while. It outcrops at the surface. There's been some small amounts of fossicking around there, but in our particular area, there haven't been many operations of the size that we're envisaging here. Moving outside of the main structure, the shear that we are, there are more widespread scattered areas of gold, and certainly to the north and to the west, there are some significant gold mines that are starting to, not starting to, that have been developed in Brazil. Brazil is, as everyone knows, a very strong iron ore country. What perhaps people don't realise as well is throughout Brazil, it's very underexplored for gold, and now increasingly we're seeing a lot of really good gold projects really arcing up particularly well. And this will go even better. I think you'll see more of that developing too, particularly as the local currency is devaluing against the US dollar. So in terms of the value of gold in Brazil, it's, I think $2,000 US is high. It's a lot higher with the local currency.
Right. And also, I think that what our viewers could definitely understand is you have significantly de-risked your project already.
Yeah.
Because you already have a DFS in place. So maybe you want to talk about your project.
Yeah, more than that. We have had this project for a while, and it was first looked at, I think, the first feasibility study was put out in 2013, and they envisaged a much larger project. But they struck problems at the time with not just the gold price, but also at the time, because we are in a northeast part of Brazil, it has many things going for it, but it has a very low rainfall, semi-arid. So the plant they envisaged at the time not only was high capital cost, but also had issues to supply the water to. What we've done since then, we've reassessed it, done a lot more work on the project, looked at ways in which we could actually conserve and recycle our water and secure our water. And to ensure that, again, we brought the throughput rate down to about 2 million tonnes per annum. There is opportunity to increase that, but let's just get it started first, throwing some good cash out. So where we are now, we're also, I consider the project to be a low-risk technical project. And the main issues there were things like sufficient supply of water, which we ensured. But by recycling water, getting dry tails, no tailings dam involved at all, which in the current climate in Brazil is pretty good. And we've also got the grey water from a local town, which we will treat on site for insurance. So not only do we finished the DFS to our satisfaction, it's a very robust model, it's a very low-cost model, we're certainly in the lowest cost quartile, but also we are fully permitted. We could start mining tomorrow as soon as we get the financing sorted out. That's where we are at the moment.
Right. And I think that, again, for our viewers, you are much further along than a lot of our explorers, which are truly at the type of greenfield stage. You are really at the cusp. And maybe, speaking of that, in your ideal world, from a timing point of view, we'd love to get the financing project in place, get everything built. Can you just talk us through, maybe in high-level terms, the path from here to production?
Yeah, okay. Well, as I said, we're fully permitted. We have all the environmental, the mining, the installation. We've even got permits for the power sublines, and the substation has been given us by the government, the pipeline water. So that's all in place. Now, what we're talking to now is we're talking to a number of groups in terms of funding this project. Once we've secured that funding, we'll immediately start putting a team in place, and we've already talked to several groups in Brazil, international large groups, for the EPCM contract. Let's say, for example, we've got all the finalisation of the funding by the end of this quarter, just for a starting point. The first thing we were doing, particularly given that we're in the middle of this pandemic, where there are certain restrictions in movements, we don't need to be on site. We get our final engineering, detailed design, order the long-term lead time items, secure that. And I would say, really, we would start doing some movement on site about now, but most of the mobilisation of the site really would occur until the start of next year, perhaps, and hopefully the pandemic restrictions would have been eased by then. So I would say after funding, we're in the order of 18 months before we get to commissioning. So in the best, our best target would be by the end of 2021 or the early 2022, producing gold.
Yeah, and I think that that's actually quite a clear path. Firstly, obviously COVID is an incredibly poor situation for everybody, especially in Brazil, but at least we do have we can be productive while we wait, so to speak.
Exactly, yeah.
No pun intended.
We've actually done that now. Since we first put the DFS out just before Christmas. So as you can imagine, there was little traction between Christmas and New Year. And when we were about to tell the world about who we are and what we're doing, because we're very much under the radar, I think, then of course you had February, March, April, and we haven't been able to move or go out of the audit. So no one really knows who we are. We're so far under the radar, it's ridiculous. And not many people know where we are, what we're doing. I mean, we've got a 2.5 million ounce resource here. We're only mining about less than half of that in our first stage, with expansion ahead of us. So,
yeah, that's incredible to think that there, as you said, that, you know, we have proven here 750,000 ounces in stage 1. I'm not sure if everyone knows that. I would say I don't know exactly what the NPV of that would be. And obviously it's moving as gold moves up every dollar, it's changing rapidly.
Well, that's right. If you look at our presentations, we always have the obligatory the little chart that shows that our current project model, which is very robust. I mean, our all-in sustaining cost for the entire 10 years is $713 US an ounce, and it's actually less than that. That's $670 dollars an ounce for the first 5 years. We did that on a gold price of $1,550. It's a little bit conservative, and let's face it, if you go to a financier or anybody else, they'll put their own numbers anyway. But the NPV of that was 342 million, and our IRR was 5%. If you looked at 1900, because that's all my table, you know, you do your sensitivity tables. My sensitivity table only goes $1,900 an ounce. I might have to reassess that, but that brings us up to nearly $500 million NPV, and our IRR is about 83.8%.
And can you remind the audience where your market cap is approximately?
About 50 million Aussie.
Right. So we have a 50, you know, circa, friends, a $50 million market cap against the, you know, $340 million NPV stage 1 with potential optionality on the upside. Is that a good way to say it? And a DFS in place?
I think there are a number of reasons why. I mean, every director in the world thinks their company is tragically undervalued, no matter what the price is.
That's the job of an MD.
I think in our case, we are a good value proposition, and that's a historical thing. And also the fact, if this project, I don't necessarily think the ASX in the Australian market fully appreciate the Brazil or South America. I think the natural home for this kind of project is in the Americas or even parts of Europe. But I think our share price will certainly go up once we get the financing going. But right now, as I said before, we are a bit under the radar. We really haven't been able to get the story out there too well. And yet the company itself is cashed up, no debt, ready to keep going, keep on going, but we'd like to get this moving now. Right,
absolutely. And so, Andrew, it sounds like the big catalyst is getting the financing project in place. Yep. That would be like the next, and assuming then we would just get a series of, from a news flow point of view, of operational movements. Would that be the right description?
Yeah, I think that's obviously a key one. We're in that peculiar situation. We're not drilling and not exploring, even if we could get on the ground, which we had considered we might do some exploration this year, but decided not to at this stage. We had to move around. So because you're not drilling and you haven't got the exploration, you don't have a lot of news flow. So it's a bit dead and quiet, which is another reason why our share price has languished a little bit. But yes, certainly that's our next phase.
Right, absolutely. And then also, you know, one of the issues always whenever you're doing an overseas project is local support. Can you just talk a little bit about your particular project and what the locals have, how have they been for you?
Sure. Look, we have had tremendous support from the local authorities. I mean, this company, we've changed our name last year, but this company's been there since 2008 and built a lot of good relationships. We have no expats over there. All our staff are Brazilian, and they're doing a really, really good job. And the important thing about Brazil is they're very supportive of business, particularly if it generates work. And where we are at the moment in the northeast of Brazil, we're in a rather depleted area. We are the largest project in that state. In fact, not just resource project, we're the largest project of any kind in that state. An area where there's a lot of unemployment. We have had a lot of concessions, a lot of assistance, a lot of cooperation from both the local municipalities and the state governments. We have been awarded a lower tax rate, a lower municipal tax, which is like the VAT, We're also eligible for what they call the Sudani tax concessions, which brings our corporate tax down to about 15%, plus exemptions on a whole bunch of importation of material equipment. The environmental groups have been very helpful in advising us and assisting us. And we have a good relationships at all levels, from the governor down to the local mayor and down to the local authorities each of those represent. So they facilitate a lot of what we do. And we have to maintain that faith, clearly, because obviously they're looking for jobs and the economy. And about 60 or 70% of our expenditure in local currencies, which is why we get the benefit of local currency as well, which has appreciated about 20% in the last months. So we will spend a lot of money building this because they have a lot of the stuff that we need, like the equipment and plant, we can source in Brazil. As I said, it's a sophisticated mining culture there. People overlook that sometimes. And a lot of skills and a lot of really good consulting groups as well as engineering staff. So we'll be using them. No reason why we wouldn't.
Absolutely. Andrew, in conclusion, I think it sounds incredibly exciting that, you have, as I said, a very clear path to production, an incredibly low NPV given your market cap. Everything is proven up, so to speak. Even I don't know how much the market appreciates it, but even you'll be like a lower quartile producer when it comes forth, with optionality upside. Andrew, in conclusion, is there anything you'd like to tell the audience?
Well, I think I've said everything there without boring them. I think, as I said, we consider ourselves to be a low technical risk with a lot of strong local support. We are a very robust gold producer. There is a lot of upside. We're only mining less than half of our resource reserves. As soon as we start producing, and we're producing in the first 4 or 5 years at a rate of about 85,000 ounces a year at less than $700 an ounce. We'll be starting to look at an expansion almost straight away, either the resource or the plant itself. Now, we might increase the throughput, but we'll certainly have enough to go to stage 2, which means we'll extend well beyond our 10-year mine life. And that doesn't include the exploration potential adjoining the resource, because some high-grade plunges coming through. And also we have about 410 square kilometres of excellent exploration ground along the same trend over 75 kilometres of the Borborema project, Brazil, which we really haven't had a chance to look at as closely as we would like. And as I said, we've pretty much got near first mover status there. A lot more people are starting to get interested in the structure from this region, and we're seeing a bit of competition coming in now from other areas. But I think we've got, I would say, the best landholding there.
Excellent. Andrew, thank you very much for your time on this historic day, as I said before. Good luck, and please stay in touch with us.
Thank you very much, Greg. Thanks for the invitation.
Bye-bye.
Okay, goodbye.